let us jump on to our second panel discussion of the day, which is Envisioning the Future of Law, the Legal Function in 2030. To discuss this, I would like to welcome on stage Majdoleen Aboudi, Head of Legal Ethics Officer, Middle East and India at AIR. Shilpa Bhasin Mehra, Head of Legal AMEA at Svitzer. Tarek Nakkach, Director and General Counsel, MEA at Kyndryl. And Gaurav Mediratta, Group General Counsel at Landmark Group.
So you can hear me well, right? All right, so my name is Majdoleen Aboudi. I'm the Head of Legal and Ethics Officer at Liquide. I also double hat with leading the Center of Excellence for M&A and JVs for Africa, Middle East, and India. And my goal for today's session is really to have an interactive discussion, the panelists, with you, and try to equip you as much as possible with some insights that would help you navigate through this, to say the least, disruptive era. So who believes that we are living the most disruptive era of human history? Put your hands up. So the rest, you think that we are living the normal days. Lucky you. So who believes that we as legal function are evolving and changing, and the legal framework is changing by the day? Who among you is using AI in their personal and professional life every day? So clearly we are living a different world, and as legal experts, we really need to hone our toolkit, envisioning the future and be prepared. So, and I have with me today panelists who are going to share with us some insights, not only from their learnings, but from their actual expertise and from their actual practice in their day-to-day of how they are bringing or envisioning the future and bringing some toolkits that hopefully will equip you as well. So if the target, if you leave this session today with one or two provocative ideas, one or two tools that you may want to start embedding, whether for you and for team, I think we would have accomplished a good goal. So let me start. Gaurav, we have with us our first panelist, Gaurav Mediratta. Gaurav is the Group General Counsel of Landmark, and he is also, it's like age, possesses a deep experience in the cybersecurity, as well as he's a thought leader in the legal innovation space. Thank you, Gaurav. And we have as well with us Shilpa Mehra. Shilpa is the head of legal at Svitzer and is a big advocate of the power of the mindset and how much that can enable us to adapt to change. Mehra, you have an impactful story that I'm looking forward to share with you, so stay tuned. Last but not least, we have Tarek Nakkach, who is the General Counsel for Kyndryl. Tarek is 2 times recognized by the 500 legal power list, as well as he possesses deep knowledge on the AI, and he's a writer. He's a common writer for AI and law. So please, can we have just a round of applause for our panelists?
Thank you.
Now, one thing we are pretty known for as legal family is to have a little bit of dry humor. So let's start by a fun question. And I'll start with you, Tarek. So, if you have a superpower, what would it be and why?
It's a good question. I haven't thought about that. Should have prepared me. But I think probably the ability to stay healthy. I think that health is a very good blessing. And so if you're able to stay healthy all the time and not get sick, I think it's a good superpower.
Absolutely. I cannot honestly, whether it's a superpower, whether it's a superhero, I'm a big well-being advocate, and I believe this is where it all starts. Sometimes we're asked the questions like, what's the most important thing in your life? You would say career, you would say family, you would say money, you would say whatever. And if you miss the health, then the rest all falls apart. So thank you. Mehra, if you have Shilpa's superpower, what would it be and why?
I love life and the joy of being alive. So my superpower would be to live the best life possible.
I love that. Gaurav, I'm going to change the question.
Please do that.
So if there is something that you would like to share with the audience, something very private that no one knows about you. Let's say private.
Okay.
Let's not go for the very.
Very ironical indeed. While the session is about future of law, I'm still stuck in the past a little bit, right? So I have watched this series called Friends so many times in my life that I can actually remember. And there used to be a time till about 3-4 years back. I could almost remember every single one of the 234 episodes of the 10 seasons. But as I said, it's thing of the past now. If you were to ask me the same thing, I may not be able to relate it or relay it to you. But yeah, that's one peculiar thing that I used to do earlier. I used to take a lot of pride at that time.
We need to catch up on that one now. So Gaurav, since it's landed with you,
Sure.
let's start by asking, while we're envisioning the legal profession 2030, what, in your opinion, would be key pillars that would really help us go through there and beyond, and should be embedded as part of the legal function strategies?
Yeah. So we did this exercise as part of my own team, and I like to speak from my own experience of what is happening in my own function and what is landing well. Not very long back, we have gone and we've done this exercise to say, what are those absolutely key things for any in-house legal team which will stay relevant even in the times to come, right? Machine learning, AI, all that aside, and I'm not for 1 second discounting that, having benchmarked it with almost 20 other organizations in this very geography, we came with 6 things that we believe are going to hold us in good stead in the times to come. And whether that is 5 years, 10 years, that's absolutely, as they say, focus on the core. The first one, and we're going to hear a lot of it in these 2 days as well, is automation. So for me, digitization is absolutely the heart and soul. I come from an organization where there are 2,200 stores. There are 5,000 plus contracts that we have across real estate, IP, supplier, vendor base, and of course compliance. And I cannot imagine life without there being a workflow which takes care of end-to-end the entire contracting process, right up to signing off approval notes and signing off contracts online. There is the journey that we are traversing right now, but for me, digitization is absolutely the key. And again, I'm a little traditionalist when it comes to matters like these, but it's important that we land these absolutely clearly. Number 2, quickly, is compliance. Again, as I said, 2,200 stores. Each store has its own sets of compliances in terms of licenses, registrations, Ministry of Labor, Ministry of Commerce, so on and so forth. It's so critical that we have each of those compliances mapped and followed through right up to the stage of a penalty. The power of having a dashboard which tells me under which ministry which fine falls and I'm able to take corrective action is absolutely necessary. Number 3, again, bread and butter, it's happening on the next room, in the next room, which is litigation management. Now, whether it's arbitration or it is going to the Dubai courts, I always say, and I'm a big proponent, that great facts make great law. It's so important that we know our facts well, we know our evidences well, whichever part of the world we are in, whether it is common law country or a civil law country. I think your facts do play a huge role, and I see a lot of times litigations going down the drain just because we have not managed our documents as well, and we are not able to brief the senior counsels outside. Number 4, technology, e-commerce, all of that. We have huge MSAs, and these are the largest value contracts. These run for 10 years with the likes of Microsoft's, Google's, etc. Absolutely critical that we get our clauses right there and we fix that. Second last is advocacy. Firm believer, having practiced and worked in India for 20 years, I know the value of what a government engagement can do in terms of influencing legislation. If I get a chance, maybe I'll speak a little more about that. And finally, winning with our people, whether it is stakeholders outside, the lawyers, or our own people, clients within the business and my own team. There needs to be a clear action plan in terms of what I do at each stakeholder level to get that model right. So those are the 6 things which are, for me, the foundation of any legal function today, 5 years from now or 10 years from now.
So if we want to recap on that, because I fully agree that it is absolutely important that we bring the basics and we know our basics, and then whatever we are evolving to make sure that we are keeping up. So from automation, compliance, litigation management, technology, advocacy, and winning with people. I'm going to just stop a minute on winning with people, because in a fast evolving world, I believe that the human factor is going to remain relevant big time. How we really adapt to change, and I'm gonna touch on that point, because really our biggest asset is our teams. Our biggest asset. The world is evolving. Potentiality of robots replacing God knows what, and I'm gonna come to you on that one. Okay, but if I want to stop a minute and say the mindset, how much the mindset important to really take us through 2030 and beyond.
Okay, I'm glad that you asked me this question, because I'm a huge fan of the mindset. And I'll share my true life story with you. In the year 2003, I was struck by meningitis. I was in coma for 40 days and then waist down paralyzed for 2.5 years. While I was in coma, I believe I was declared dead and revived by the defibrillator. We had all the technologies, all the machines, but they gave me a very poor chance of survival. But the fact that I'm sitting over here with you is proof of mind over matter. And to further stress on that, I want to tell you how my mindset changed from a sense of despair to a sense of hope. Because a very senior neurologist who met me just one day after I came out from coma told me that I am very lucky that nothing has happened to my brain, because he said, we have physiotherapy for arms and legs, but we have no physio for the brain. So AI was invented by the brilliant human mind. In fact, the first AI written programs were done in 1951 in the University of Manchester. So I think the mindset is so important when we are dealing with something as rapidly changing as AI. Do we view it as a friend, or do we view it as a threat? If we view anything as a friend, we are open, we are receptive, we want to adapt, we want to help, we want to learn. And if we see anything as a threat, our defense mechanism is up in place, we are closed, we are scared, we don't want to be influenced. Everything is just shut. And I don't think we really have a choice here. We have to have an open, agile mind to help learn, or then very sadly be outdated and perish.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. You mentioned the robots, and you mentioned it's like I'm sure, guys, there are lots of you. If not, I can say it's like all of you at least once thought about, am I going to be replaced by robot? If not me, this part of my team is going to be replaced by robots. So I'm going to take this question with you, Tarek. Do you think that a robot lawyer is going to replace a human lawyer in the legal functions?
First of all, I appreciate your experience, and coming speaking after Shilpa, then I think I cannot top that. So kudos to you. And I think what Shilpa said, is especially about the human experience, and at the end, technology and AI, the ultimate purpose should be to help improve our lives, right? That's the ultimate goal. Now, coming to this question, robot lawyers. So when I started specializing in AI and law, it was almost 6 or 7 years ago. I was part of a panel called Robot Lawyers, How and How Soon. That was similar to this panel. And most of us in the room agreed that we will never be replaced by robots. You know, robots cannot think or be creative or have this intuition or have this mindset as human beings. However, there was a gentleman sitting, and I still remember back in the room, who was a robotics engineer. And he disagreed with everyone. And he said, because you are thinking in the mindset of 2017, or I don't know what year it was, you should be thinking in the mindset of 2050. And by that, you would see whether robot lawyers would replace or not human beings. And so I really like what he said, and it caught and stayed with me. And I can see now we're almost now 2023, we're not 2050, and we can start seeing the technology has evolved. And if you look at ChatGPT, for example, or other generative AI, we start to have a feeling of where this would be going. So to answer your question, whether robot lawyers would replace us, I will give a lawyer's answer. It depends, but I'm sure that it will replace some of the tasks that we're currently doing. It will be an ally to us, so it will help us. Whether we would be sitting I don't know if in 30 or 40 years with a robot panelist speaking with us, or I don't know if that would be the case. But what I say that definitely there's a sense that in the near future there would be robot lawyers, not like the Transformer, shaped robot, but at least some high intelligent AI that will be able to help us on our day-to-day tasks.
I believe Tarek, is already happening, right? So it's already happening. One of the interesting facts Reuters have published in last April 2023 that ChatGPT, being used also now in Ellen Overy and so forth, have generated over 21 million in revenue in cash. Okay, that means you can imagine ChatGPT in the first few months reached 100 million users, right? So it is already happening. There are so many numbers, whether on law firms that started using it, whether different platforms that are already utilized. AI has been there. AI has been there for so long. The only thing that hit us, I would say, as a humanity was a ChatGPT, because it started to be accessible to everyone, where you feed the information, you ask what you want, it tailor it for you, it comes back to you, it feeds itself, and it's evolving by the day, by the second. So that brings a very important question on the legal responsibility. So let's imagine that. So a doctor, a robot doctor, right? Primitive diagnosis, gives a wrong diagnosis. What are you going to do? How you can assess the legal liability? Since the legal responsibility is really one of the most significant factor in assessing the legal responsibility, is the free will. It's the control. With the machine learning, with this component basically being not there, not to mention that human component is not there, can you ask robots for compensation? Can you say this is a bad robot? So how do we deal with that? How do we deal with that? Is our framework is ready, and how we can work within all those, I would say now, gray areas that the evolvement of the AI is creating as well?
I think this is a very good question. I think that's the genuine question, especially for lawyers. And that we have to deal with. In terms of AI and liability, we given a very good example on medical diagnosis software, for example. The current liability regimes, and this is basically in the EU and the UK, and even in the civil law, are mostly adequate to cover issues of liability when people do harm to others, when machines do harm to others. However, there's also, there's like a sort of black box which is still pending, where the AI is fully autonomous, or where the AI is taking decisions, learning through the internet, and taking recommendations, and coming up with recommendations. And that's where the black box or the gray area is still. And then, which is the question is, who's liable then? Is it the AI software? Is it the who designed it? Is it the company that owns it? Is it the doctor who's using it to treat the patients? And so these are all questions that have been, in the EU AI Act. They want to tackle them, especially also on issues on data as well. So the answer would be that we are still discovering this. And then the question that comes after that is, do we need to regulate or not? Based to protect people from the liability that comes up through the AI system.
Yeah, exactly. The more I believe we're introducing ourselves as we're learning as we go. We're discovering that as the AI is evolving, whether in the legal responsibility, like for example, criminal law, right, and the basis on which the liability arises. IP by definition is like in all its segments, and we just finished now a wonderful session. The first basic component is the human creation. In order to create the right, it has to be created by human. There's nothing anywhere in the world where IP rights are basically created by a machine. So this is another thing. How can you, and what is the role? This is maybe we go back to the advocacy. What is the role that the legal society is playing in order to address the legal framework to cater for those instances, to basically, as it was structured, what took us here would not basically take us there. So I'm going to come back to the advocacy and ask, how do you think the advocacy and public policy can play a greater role in shaping legislations and legal framework for AI use?
Sure. And I'm going to refer to my notes shamelessly because I don't like to miss out on the finer details in life. I have always followed, and I said I've been now in this function in the industry for almost 24 years, and I am a great proponent of what advocacy can do. And back home in India, there were great opportunities to go and engage with the government and influence various legislations as they were taking shape. We've always followed 4 steps, and I'll first talk advocacy in the traditional sense, and then we'll see how it will shape the future of AI, etc., etc. We source and monitor, and we make sure that we keep track of all the legislations which are coming out in our respective sectors. I have been in FMCG and retail all my life. So there was clearly a member in the team whose day job it was to make sure that we are scanning the ecosystem, the legislative ecosystem, whether it is on the IP side, data privacy side, so on and so forth. Number 2, we continue to analyze how it is going to have an impact on our business. At the end of the day, any legislation which is going to have an impact on the business needs engagement with the government to make sure, and when you go to the government, it's not just for the benefit of the business. It's always win-win for the customer or the consumer and the organization and the government. So the framework has to be such, or the legislation has to be such, where it's a win-win for all stakeholders. You cannot go to the government and say it's good for the industry and therefore it's going to be good for the rest of the population. Identify quickly what are the changes that are required, and then make sure you proactively engage with the government and you influence. There are, and people used to say that there are not too many opportunities in this part of the world to engage and influence. I beg to disagree. Whether it is KSA or whether it is, UAE. I think I have seen enough and more opportunities. And there are associations in this part of the world as well. There's a retail business group, for example. There is, in KSA, there is an institution called Mukatafa, whose job it is, and it's run by a Saudi royal, who's very, very sort of proactive in terms of going and engaging with the government, and that gets us a foothold. So whether it is data privacy, whether it is Saudiization, whether it is Emiratization, there are enough and more opportunities that we are getting, or rental laws, for example. There are enough and more opportunities that we are getting to go and engage with the government in a way to positively shape those legislations. Again, coming to artificial intelligence, as he rightly said, Tarek, the law is going to evolve. And you've hit the nail on the head. What happens to the data? What happens to the copyright of all the content that ChatGPT picks from all over the world and then creates its own ecosystem within that? What happens to the liability, whether it is the developer of the AI, it is the user of the AI? We are going to see laws evolve in this part very soon. And the earlier we are able to pick it up and follow the simple model, the traditionalist approach, which is source, monitor, analyze, engage, and get a clear understanding with the government, that would be the way forward as I see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's absolutely critical to play a proactive role rather than just sitting. And I agree with you. We have in UAE, in Saudi, I think there is an intentional drive to basically get the best of the art of the work, including within the legal sector. So maybe Shilpa, you can share with us your take on the advocacy. And again, I will go to the human factor and say, how would that you have an impactful experience where you overcome the machines, where you overcome the science with our mindset, okay? How that kind of mindset can really also play a role in shaping the future.
That's, I'm loving the questions you're asking me because they go totally with my own mindset. So I think the way we have to keep on changing, the laws are adapting so quickly. We have the Virtual Asset Regulatory Authority that came about, the VARA law. I mean, who thought 5 years ago we're going to have a law on virtual assets? So the law is changing, the mindset is changing, we as lawyers have to change. We are going from defenders of the business traditionally, which was just to avoid litigation, reduce cost and risk, to now becoming revenue generators. We are coming in the forefront from the backbenchers. We are going to be advising from the word go. We don't only come into the picture when trouble hits our door. So there is a transformation that's happening even as we speak. In fact, Majdoleen, when I read the topic first, 2030, I thought, wow, that's being very ambitious. I don't know what's happening next year. So, you know, we are constantly changing, and the mindset for that, I mean, from my personal story, like I told you, how the mindset changed. So the mindset is going to be so important for us to become very proactive, to add value to our business. It's not only reducing costs, avoiding litigation, it's from the word go, strategizing, weighing the pros and cons, being at the forefront and involved from the beginning.
Yes, early involvement is absolutely key. Thank you very much. Maybe thinking through our discussion, Tarek, how has, as a tech lawyer, as a tech professional, has been in the field for some time now, how has technology helped you in your daily job? And can you give us examples?
Absolutely. I think coming back to the added value part which you've mentioned, I think that adopting technology for the sake of adopting technology is not going to work for everyone. I think what's best is you look at your own organization, whether you work in an in-house or a part of a law firm, and see to adopt which technology is best for you. And so I think the current technologies that are used in law firms are basically, and especially with the AI, around document automation, around contracts management, legal research, litigation prediction, and e-discovery. So these are basically the 5 pillars where AI is on the forefront. And so you would have to look, wherever you're working, see which one is best suitable for you. And there are a lot of new softwares and tools up there. So for example, there's this company that does NDAs where you can have 2 NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, where 2 parties, instead of actually sending emails to each other and negotiating NDAs, you send it to a bot, and the bot would negotiate by itself and send you the final version for you to sign. So that would be, for example, a good use of technology to yes, there is actually, and if you want to know how the technology works, it's simple, because you input data in the tool for what are your standard terms, for example, and what are your fallback terms, and then and whatever you accept and you do not accept. And then the tools would read, if you have 2 NDAs, would read whatever is your standard and non-standard, and then would highlight which is non-standard. So typically do is being done by AI. So coming back to my own experience, I'd like to use data. So in any meetings that I go to, I like to use data. And in one of my previous jobs, we had a time tracking, just like a law firm, we had a time tracking for our own lawyers. And what I've done is, we had, and this is a practical example, we had a new vice president coming from abroad, and it was his first day in the UAE, and I met him. And I wanted to show what added value we do as a legal department. And so I've used the data that we have on time to show him, for example, that we spent 300 hours per year negotiating $10 million deals. We have spent this amount of time to do X. And so by speaking in data and showing the added value with the revenue, this is how I use technology to better promote my legal department.
It's very interesting. I'm still at the part that negotiates the NDA. Yeah, you see, so I'm really still there. And I wanted to ask you if, again, you're probably more advanced in that area than most of us here, considering that this has been your bread and butter for some time now. If I would ask you to choose 1 or 2 top tools that you would say, guys, if you're not using this, you better start using it, what would that be?
I would start by the basics. So, and one of the issues that I do usually, I ask question, who has, for example, a document automation system or contracts management system with their business? I would ask you guys. So anyone who uses contracts management or automation.
So anyway, one second. So we have, no one uses in this room the
No, there are
management?
There's a gentleman there
sorry.
and a gentleman
Okay.
there. So
All right.
Let me ask, who uses e-invoicing tools, for example? That should be, so yeah, invoicing generated through a system where we can. So I would, because of I don't see a lot of, I would start by this one, which can be used, the e-invoicing system, where you can track your invoices, approve them on a system, and put them. And then I would use a document automation system, whether contracts management basics, where I can store contracts, or a more advanced system, where, for example, I ask the system to generate the NDA for me, or to highlight and mark up some of the non-standard issues that I have in a specific contract. So to answer your question, if I don't have anything to adopt, I would start by the e-invoicing and then document automation / contract management.
Okay, I think that makes perfect sense. One more question from my side, and then maybe we can open it for also our audience. What are the most, if you want to, let's say, top 3 pressing legal issues that arise of the use of the AI technology? If we want to think about those like top 3, there are so many things, but if we want to focus on top 3 things that may arise, and perhaps how can we, as we are evolving still towards a proper legal framework, address that?
I'll give it a chance
Yeah.
to.
Sure. So before I answer the question, can I also share just one example of how we are using technology? I'm conscious of the time, we have 10.5 minutes to go. So very quickly, first on how we are using technology, and then I'll take this question as well. So he talked about the contract management as one example. Compliance can be a very, very boring topic for the non-legal fraternity within any business, and that is our experience. I think the tool that we have is so well integrated within the entire business, starting from admin to HR to finance and to legal, and of course to the business guys who are running the stores for us, that it actually combines everybody together, puts everybody together end to end, right from receipt of a notice to the time when we are actually paying the penalty. All of that gets tracked on the system today, as I said earlier also. Whatever I need in terms of a dashboard, in terms of information of what kind of finance are coming and what is the scale of those fines, everything can be tracked. Having said that, and coming to the human part that Shilpa was alluding to, it will never ever run on its own, right? The compliance can be reported, but it ultimately has to be done by a human being. And therefore it becomes so important that we have all the right trainings, the right capability building, and the right tracking of it happening, so that there are people who are doing it, making sure it's going onto the system, and then you address the entire issue end to end. So it's a beautiful mix for me, both for machine and humans to come together to run a proper compliance management framework. And I say it with a lot of pride that in the last 2 to 3 years, as I track that compliance tool, with the intervention on both these sides, the numbers, the penalty numbers actually show a reduction of almost 70-75% in the entire year. I am talking year on year. Now coming to the second question, which was on what are the legal challenges that we will see happening, and that's where advocacy will possibly play a role. The first one, as I said, is data privacy. If there is personal data of individuals which will get generated or which will get used in this entire process, very clearly PDPL, and in this part of the world especially where PDPL right now is in a nascent stage, 100% I see that coming into the picture. Number two, I think it would be the intellectual property. We talked about that as well. Simple example, AI today could be picking up pictures from around the world, from stock images from around the world, generating its own content. Is that authorized? Is there a copyright breach there? We don't know. It's something which is, we know for sure that the Googles and the Microsofts of the world are creating embargoes on this kind of an AI to be used for generating this content which is publicly available or which is available with these kind of websites. And the third, as the team has rightly pointed out, is the indemnities and the liabilities that will arise if in the case of medical, for example, if there is a wrong diagnosis or the wrong prescription, whose liability is it? So those are areas where law is definitely going to evolve. We are going to watch that space as well, because we don't have the experience of having still seen it in action. I think we'll watch that space in the next 5 years, 10 years, and that's where we'll have to proactively engage with the governments to influence the legislation in a way that it takes care of every single stakeholder.
Transparency, accountability.
Absolutely. Yeah, we cannot just think industry. We have to think customer, consumer, industry, and the government, and that's where everybody has to win in this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Any comments, Shilpa, on
Yes,
that?
Gaurav has given such a all-inclusive sort of an answer. What I would like to add is that AI is giving us the benefit of time, the most finite and the most precious resource. The common complaint we always have is we don't have the time. So now is the time to learn, to upskill, and to do the things that the automated machines will not be able to do. We are humans, we don't work on algorithms. When he was talking about negotiation, I was just trying to visualize Alexa and Siri negotiating. I think we humans, you know, we can view the sensitivities, the cultural differences, the voice modulation, the body language. I find it tough for the machines to be doing it as completely as we do it. So AI is giving us the resource of time. Let's use that.
I think if any value, out of the AI use, and this is maybe, I would share my personal experience when I first get to know about ChatGPT. It was from my nephew, obviously, the other generation, the next generation. And I was completely apprehensive because he was like, oh my God, I use it for everything. And one day I had a request from our head office asking for what's the difference between the two jurisdictions, between the DIFC courts and the civil courts or UAE courts outside the IFC. And really being here for over 20 years, you would know, right? But you would not have it instantly. So the usual practice, I would check with my external counsel, and my external counsel would quote me a couple of thousand, and they would get back to me on this information between 3 to 5 days, right? So I remember that ChatGPT, and I was like, you know what, let's do that. And I've requested the information. First, I got it, little bit refinement. It took me exactly, I remember, 15 minutes to get a beautiful document. Now, I need to here put a disclaimer. I knew the topic. I am very adversed with the topic. I needed a summary. I needed an accurate summary. So when I got it, and I got it so perfect, I called my external counsel. And I was like, Phil, do you know ChatGPT? No, you better know it. Because I just got something done in 15 minutes versus 2-3 days at a zero cost. So this is something. Our life is made out of time. So if AI is going to really make us as a humans focus on the right things, on the things that are less administrative, more creative, okay, I think this is where we should be driving it. So I want to open. We have a few minutes left, so I want to open for some questions in the room. Please.
It's okay.
My question is, as we are moving towards AI system, whether legal education system at universities should be first more technology driven rather than everything gets implemented totally in technology. So what is your point of view on that?
Do you like to ask any of the panelists?
So anyone can answer or all of them can answer?
I can take a shot if you like. So I'll just go back to my 12-year-old, right? When I see the way children are getting educated today versus the way we were educated, there's a sea change. The schools themselves have recognized the importance of technology, and you see that integrated right from their digital devices that they carry, the way the classroom training happens. All of that today is a reality, and therefore it's absolutely critical that as time passes by, the education itself is going to be more tech driven. Every single child today knows about ChatGPT. We had to do a very quick summary of Yemen's point of view, and please mark these words very carefully. Yemen's point of view on the war in Ukraine. That was the brief of the Model United Nations that my daughter was supposed to speak on, and she's 12. And this was in the very early part of ChatGPT. I had just come to know about it like a week, right? I put that in as a question. And ChatGPT explained to us why Yemen should not have a point of view on the war in Ukraine, because it itself has several problems. Then it quoted several articles where I could see what are the various challenges in Yemen, which then helps me substantiate and justify why Yemen should not and cannot have a point of view, because it itself has its own problems. So something as some basic as this is available, and with such level of detailing that your answer gets justified. So 100% legal education or any other education for the time being, I would say, is going to integrate, they are going to accept these forms of, upgrading education 100%.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Sorry.
It's not a question, it's an observation. Looking at the topic, envisioning the future of law. Second part is the legal functions in 2030. AI is not a part of this discussion. AI comes in incidentally. So I think the focus has been mainly on AI. The future of law would depend upon the lawmakers. What is the future of law? The legal functions in 2030 will not change. Only the implementation, the mode and manner of performing those legal functions may change because of technology. You will still require evidence to be produced, you will still file affidavit, you will still have to address arguments, whether they are oral or they are subject. Therefore, the procedural part will remain the same, only it may expedite by use of technology. Our Chief Justice of India just now said we are bringing technology, therefore be quick disposal. But what I have seen from my experience is that yes, filing of the cases has been facilitated, not the disposal. It will remain the same 2030 also.
So, sir, with absolutely, and you are a traditionalist like me, Mr. Lalit Bhasin, I think everybody who's who of legal in India knows you very well. So thank you so much for that observation. And that's why we started the session with those 6 key pillars that I alluded to, which is automation, compliance, litigation management, and the other 3 that we talked about. So thank you so much for those observations.
And winning with people.
Absolutely.
This is the main asset. This is the consistent asset. But I think one of the big messages for this session is how much are you looking through the corners? How much are the trusted advisor? We have the privilege to be the trusted, so we have the trust element and advisor. So the trusted advisor, how much are you utilizing that in honing your toolkit to actually embrace that change, to really make that change serve you? Because it can only serve you so long that you educate yourself enough, so long that you are willing to acknowledge the change, so long that you are willing to acknowledge that fast, rapid pace that we are in by the day.
Yeah.
And thinking again outside the box, sparing that time to read about the latest updates and so forth. So as we're coming to the end of our session, I really want to wrap up by thanking you and thanking my fellow panelists for really sharing such valuable insights. So can I have one round of applause, please, for the panelists? Thank you so much. And I would like to close on a personal note. So again, we'll ask one more question for all the panelists. What is the one small thing you do every day that helps you stay focused and productive besides coffee and tea? And bonus points if it's something quirky or unexpected.
Okay. I'll help.
Besides coffee and tea, I play chess online. So I play chess online, helps my mind be, distracted and focused on, because it needs some creative thinking. And so by doing this at least 30 minutes per day, I do it. Then when I come back to either my work or my family, I'll be able to be more focused.
To be more productive. Okay, yeah, amazing. I love chess.
I do something quite similar. I'm a person of words because I write also. I play Scrabble online. I think it's the biggest stress buster for me. It gives me so much happiness. All the energy that's drained out, my dopamine is much better, it's higher, and it's my me time. It helps me to again get back to work, get back to the routine. It's a great breather. I love it.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
There are 2 statements which are there in the wall in my cabin. on the wall in my cabin. One is consistency is the mother of mastery. And the second one is ideation without execution is delusion. And I make sure that I follow those two, at least I try to follow those two to the hilt. The way I do it is simple. Every week, there has to be a blueprint of that week in front of me, which means I have jotted down exactly how a successful week would look like. That gets deduced into every single day, and we make sure that that day gets delivered the way it's meant to be. And I'd make sure that I do this every week, every month, and every year. And I've at least followed this for the last 6 years. And it's not been too bad for me because it just makes sure that I am ahead of my work at all points of time.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing. And I would like to thank the sponsors as well, and LexTalk for having us, for organizing this event. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for everyone. Thanks.
Big hand to the moderator, Majdoleen Aboudi. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Yes. Yep.